Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today. And I want to thank Jim and Alexis for inviting us and my husband for sharing the stage with me. So I would like to introduce you to a typical patient that we would see at the Amen clinics. And I'm going to go through this patient's history with you. And I'd like you to then tell me what you think this patient's prognosis would be, what their lifestyle would be like. So this is a middle-aged woman with a 20-year history of cancer. She had an undiagnosed autoimmune disorder that just wreaked havoc on her life from the time she was a child. So she had severe digestive issues that led to upper and lower GIs by the time she was 4 years old. She had a 25-year history of thyroid imbalance, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, gallbladder disease, which led to surgery, multiple surgeries actually, and multiple infections because of the autoimmune disorder. She had anxiety, sleep disorders, digestive issues, skin rashes, acne, mood, energy swings, and she ended up suffering a very severe episode of depression through all of this. Now, as you might imagine, this patient was prescribed multiple medications to deal with all of this. Some of the medications, though, were to deal with the side effects of other medications. And some of the medications she was prescribed were to prevent some of the diseases that she was at risk for, so like osteoporosis and heart disease. And isn't that very typical in our society? We give medications to prevent things and to deal with side effects. She didn't really like this idea, and she wanted to find a better way. And when she approached her physician several times, he told her that all of these complex issues were, there was no connection. They were bad luck. It was just, you know, the genetic draw, that it was how she was dealt, the cards she was dealt. She was told she was high maintenance and that maybe she should see a psychiatrist because she was in denial. So based on that history, what do you think this patient's life would be like? Do you think that she would still be suffering from multiple chronic diseases, maybe heart disease, diabetes, maybe she's morbidly obese and unable to ambulate, or maybe she really has no joy in her life. She's still severely depressed. Or do you think she'd be a happy, healthy, well-balanced, middle-aged woman? How many of you vote for the first picture? Okay. How many of you would vote for the second picture? Okay, more of you. And how many of you would vote for the third picture? Okay. Those were really challenging years. And I really don't like talking about my past. But what I went through to get healthy, to get my brain healthy, to get my body healthy was completely worth it. And the fact that I can use that today to reach out to so many of my clients is what motivates me. And I just love sharing my message with everyone that I can share it with if I can help any of you. So thank you for having me here today with you. And I have to tell you, you can't wait until you're sick, like Mr. Blundell here. You need to prevent illness. You need to work on prevention. And I just love this cartoon. You're not ill yet, Mr. Blundell, but you've got potential. And that's how it always felt to me, and it's how it feels to so many people that I coach. They're on the brink of illness. I don't feel right. I don't feel well. They're obese. They're insulin resistant. They go to their doctor. They want to get help. You're not quite sick enough. You don't need surgery. You need to work and focus on prevention. The wisest thing that doctor told me that day was that I needed a psychiatrist. I actually highly recommend them. But I do want to clarify that I have never been a patient at the Amen clinics. My husband would probably tell you I've been an ongoing project. And he frequently tells me I'm a psychiatrist dream, and I'm not sure that that's a compliment, but... So I teach a class at our clinics, and I have women that come into, most of the women that come into our class, and men, mostly women, are very unhealthy. Most of them are morbidly obese, and they have multiple health conditions. And one of the women, as I went through my class, said, you know, I'm making progress, I'm losing weight, but I'm really struggling with my addiction to donuts. She said, I just don't think I can do this because I just don't think I can eat the same foods that are healthy day after day. It sounds boring and it's the same foods. And I said, well, I hate to break this to you, but you are eating the same foods every day. They're just foods that are killing you. So this is how I helped Tammy break her addiction to donuts. By the way, Tammy is morbidly obese and suffers from diabetes. So chronic hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar, leads to diabetes mellitus. Most of us know this, right? And Tammy's blood sugar typically ran between 150 and 300. Now, if her medication was really controlled, it was closer to 150. And diabetes leads to skin ulcerations and neuropathy. And neuropathy is tingling and severe pain in your extremities. Often turns your toes black and gives you oozing sores. And if it's uncontrolled, it often leads to amputation and blindness. Now, my grandmother was a type 2 diabetic, and she suffered severely from diabetes, and she went blind, and she had neuropathy, and she was a step away from having her toes amputated, except that she died of heart disease before that could happen. And I had to learn how to give my grandmother insulin shots when I was 11 years old. And I remember the nurse telling me that if I did this wrong, I could kill her. This had a huge impact on me growing up. Probably had a little bit to do with me becoming a nurse, because I remember nursing my grandmother a lot. And did you know that Alzheimer's disease is now referred to as type 3 diabetes? So they actually discovered that insulin is not just made in the pancreas, it's actually made in the brain. And obesity has a significant impact on decreasing that insulin that's made in the brain. And women are the hardest hit. And depression is one of the most common side effects of obesity. So food has a huge impact on your mood and on your hormonal balance. So not just the hormones of metabolism, but also testosterone and estrogen. And sugar and trans fats lead to arteriosclerosis and stroke frequently. Sugar feeds cancer. So cancer cells are 8 times more metabolically active than regular cells. Cancer feeds on sugar. I don't know how else to tell you that. Sugar and trans fat lead to elevated cholesterol and vascular and heart disease. That's an ischemic heart. And it causes rapid aging and wrinkles through a process called advanced glycation end products, where sugar actually sticks to protein and destroys it. So this 39-year-old woman here, you can tell she's eaten a lot of sugar in her day. And fructose in sugar is toxic to the liver. It's actually poison. So fructose is actually completely processed in the liver. Leads to fatty liver. So if you don't like your children, give them soda. It actually has the same effect as alcohol without making you drunk. In the liver, it's the same. And fructose leads to hypertension and gout, so which is very painful swelling in your joints. So when I finished this lecture, I did a very long physiology lesson with my group. And when I finished this lecture, they were all pretty grossed out. And I wondered how it went over. And 2 weeks later, Tammy came to me and she said, I have to tell you something. And I said, what? She said, I can't look at donuts the same way anymore. She said, I haven't had one in 2 weeks. She said, it's the first time I've gone 2 weeks without a donut for years. She said, I never understood the impact or the consequences that food has on my body. She said, my doctor always tells me my blood sugar. I know my blood sugar is 300, but what does that mean? I don't really know what that means. So what? My blood sugar is 300. I'll just take more medication. I never understood what that meant inside my body and what it was doing to me. And I said, oh, that's so cool. I was so excited. She said, but that's not the really cool thing. And I said, what? She said, it's the first time since I've been diagnosed with diabetes that my blood sugar has been below 100. 2 weeks it took for her blood sugar to drop below 100, eating correctly. This is not that hard, but you have to really want it. You know, and I always get a little emotional when my clients tell me these things, and I wonder why. And it's because when you have suffered, as I've suffered with my health, or I've taken care of my grandmother and watched her literally die of diabetes and just wither away, this is important. This is my cocaine when I get these stories. There's no amount of money that can do this for you. It's just an incredible feeling to be a part of this in someone's life. So, honey, can you grab my bags for me? They're sitting on the couch. I am going to do a little project with you on some foods. I'm going to show you 3 foods that you've all seen many times. And I'm going to ask you to choose which food you think would give you the most energy, the best health, and the most ability to serve, whether it be your church, your family, your job, whatever it is that means the most to you. Now, the ingredient lists are fairly long. I'm not going to read the ingredients to you. Thank you, sweetheart. So I'm not going to read the ingredients to you, but I am going to post them, and I'm going to summarize them for you. Okay. These are my bags. There we go. Okay. We clear? Okay. So in bag A, we have a chicken-based food. It's got 1 sugar, 6 cheap hydrogenated oils, and 2 controversial preservatives. So TBHQ is a preservative that 1/30th of an ounce has been shown to cause stomach tumors. And dipolymethylsiloxane is an anti-foaming agent that they often add to fried foods. And in bag B, we have a lamb-based food. It's got 13 vitamins, 11 minerals, 5 food supplements like fish oil, vitamin D, rosemary, marigold, beta-carotene. It's got 1 natural sweetener, which is actually a fiber that's used as a prebiotic, 0 hydrogenated oils, and 0 controversial preservatives. And bag C is another chicken-based food. This one has 3 cheap oils, 1 hydrogenated oil, 6 sugars, added gluten, 8 preservatives, and a dough conditioner. Now, dough conditioners have been banned in most of Europe, but we still use them in the United States. So how many of you would choose bag A? Smart people. How many of you would choose bag B? Okay. And how many of you would choose bag C? Okay. Bag A, I'm going to do bag B last since that's the one that you all chose. In bag A, we have the all-famous chicken nuggets. Probably not too surprising to some of you. In bag C, this one actually surprised me. This is actually a fat-free, healthy chicken wrap from Subway. That's their healthy version. Bag B. So how many of you knew it's dog food? It's very good dog food. So how many of you knew that as a society, we were feeding our dogs better than ourselves and our children? It's frightening. It's seriously frightening. So this concept of nutrigenomics is very fascinating to me. This basically says that the food you eat and the drugs and supplements you take talk directly to your genes, and you change your genetic expression on a daily basis, depending on what you eat. So are you going to choose a pattern that's an inflammatory disease-causing pattern, if you could choose any pattern you wanted to choose for your genes? Or an anti-inflammatory health-promoting pattern? I know which one I would choose. So this is a story that demonstrates nutrigenomics perfectly. I love the story. So the gorilla on the left is a wild gorilla, and the gorilla on the right is in the zoo. Wild gorillas do not die of chronic diseases. They die of acute diseases, like respiratory infections and Salmonella, E. coli, and being poached. But gorillas in zoos, it's a whole different story. The #1 cause of disease is heart disease. They get chronic diseases, and they have these neurotic behaviors of hair plucking, and they regurgitate their food up to 4 times an hour and re-eat it. And it really grosses out the patrons, so zoos get a lot of complaints over this. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. So the veterinarians have often gotten together and thought, what can we do about this? They don't even know why it happens. They've never known why it happens. But at the Cleveland Metro Zoo, they had 2 gorillas that were dying of heart disease, Beback and Makolo. And so they thought, we have to do something. We can't let these gorillas just continue on this way. And they started really analyzing every aspect of the gorillas' lives to figure out what can we do about these gorillas. And they looked at their habitats and their food, and they finally thought, well, let's start with their food. You see, gorillas in zoos are given nutritional cookies. They contain all of the vitamins and minerals and amino acids that gorillas are supposed to need to be healthy. So they said, well, let's mimic what gorillas eat in the wild. What a concept. So they started giving them 11 pounds of wild greens with flax seeds, bamboo, nuts, seeds, and berries. And they started scattering it around their habitat. And a very interesting thing happened. Within 1 year, the gorillas lost 65 pounds each. They reversed most of their heart disease, and they all but stopped their neurotic behaviors of hair plucking and regurgitating their food. But what I find the most fascinating about this is that their new diet was double the calories. Very interesting. But the cookies were high in sugar and high in starch, and they gobbled them up very quickly. And their new diet was scattered around their habitat, and they had to forage for it. It took them 75% of the day to eat. And this really goes to that idea of what you eat, the quality of the food you eat, how it affects your genetic expression on a daily basis. I just find that fascinating. And the other thing, like Cookie Monster, so like Cookie Monster, the gorillas were really upset initially. They missed their sugar, but they got over it and they got healthy. So get over it and get healthy. It took about 3 days. So I'm writing my 5th book right now, and a portion of my book is about calorie restriction and how do we mimic it. And why would you want to? So calorie restriction has been the only thing shown to actually extend life, and it's been studied since about 1935. But recently, they determined there's some controversy over this idea of calorie restriction because of how much we have to reduce calories, and it's not good for everybody, and there are some side effects to it. So if you're naturally lean, there's some problems with this. And so the researchers started looking at what other factors, what other processes does calorie restriction affect, and can we use those processes to extend life? And what it boiled down to was these 5 processes: inflammation, glycation, which was that process we talked about sugar sticking to protein and destroying protein, glucose control, oxidation, which is the free radicals in your body, methylation, which is how your body detoxifies, and it can cause, it's responsible for many diseases, and especially heart disease, and really ultimately DNA repair. How does your body repair its DNA? So what they discovered, as more and more research is coming out regularly, other factors that work on these same 5 processes: exercise, sleep, stress control, and toxic exposure. and they're synergistic. So exercise and nutrition are highly synergistic. They work incredibly well together, and exercise actually really helps your nutrition. And there's a problem with this idea of the calories in, calories out myth. Like even if you think about the gorillas, well, if it's about calorie restriction, how come the gorillas got healthy when they doubled their calories, right? So it's a question you have to ask. Now, I'm not saying you can go out and eat 4,000 calories of healthy calories and that you're going to not get fat or that you're going to be healthy. You probably wouldn't be. But I am saying that you could go out and eat half of the calories. And if they were unhealthy calories, really poor quality, you probably would get sick. So let's take a look at this chart here. If it was all about calories in, calories out, and I messed up one day on my diet, I should just be able to go work out a little harder and it should all be fine, right? But it turns out it doesn't work like that. So if my husband takes me to Cheesecake Factory for my birthday and I have a classic cheeseburger and a slice of peanut butter cheesecake, I have to have sex for more than 24 hours straight to make up for that one misstep in my diet. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't pan out. So what's working here? Exercise actually works at the genetic level. It actually works in the methylation process that we talked about, turning on genes and turning off genes, just like diet does. Great health is about abundance, not deprivation. It's about learning how to balance your hormones and stimulating your taste sensations. But if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You need to learn how to get back on board safely and plan ahead. So the first principle is think high-quality calories. All calories are not the same. We just learned that. A 250-calorie candy bar is not going to balance your hormones the same way that a salad with nuts and berries and lean protein will. And there are some take-home tips here. So get 70% of your calories from plant-based live foods and the other 30% from high-quality protein-rich foods. I like to tell people to start with an elimination diet. So eliminate things like sugar, bread, pasta, rice, grains, dairy, soy, and alcohol. Oh, and coffee for 1 month. I know it sounds a little challenging. It's actually not. I've got 300 recipes in my cookbooks that are all based on this. And why do we do this? How many of you know that more than 80% of the serotonin in your body is created in your gut? So if you have trouble with your gut, you have trouble with your life, with your moods. So what this does is it actually helps to heal the gut. Go gluten-free. There's no reason to eat gluten. It does nothing for you, but it's been linked to many autoimmune disorders. It's one of the reasons that I had so much trouble and never knew about it. And eat grains like a condiment when you do eat them, even whole grains, small amounts. Your body can process it better because even whole grains break down into sugar. Your brain is 80% water. You need to continuously rehydrate it. So drink about half of your body weight in water each day. If you're 100 pounds, drink about 60 ounces, but don't go over 100 ounces because you don't want to mess up your electrolyte balance, and don't drink your calories. Lean protein. Think of protein like a natural medicine that you are lucky enough to take in, and you take it in regular doses. You don't take massive doses at one time. So that study that I told you about calorie restriction, one of the studies showed that it's not just about the calorie restriction, it's about the balance of protein. So people don't absorb high amounts of protein at one time. Turns out that we absorb between 20 and 40 grams of protein in one sitting. So if you're eating excessive amounts of protein, what happens is it's creating oxidative stress. And if you don't get enough protein, it affects DNA repair. So you want to get the right amounts of protein, and you want it throughout the day. Protein has the opposite effect on your body that sugar has. So sugar raises, your blood sugar and causes an insulin release. Protein does the opposite. It actually balances blood sugar. It focuses, gives you brain focus, and it balances your hormones of metabolism. So it releases something called PYY, which sends a signal to your brain that tells you that you're full and that you're satisfied. Sugar, when you eat sugar, it actually tells your brain that you're hungry even though you may have just gorged. So you might be full around the middle and you have to loosen your belt, but you still feel that need to sort of snack even just a few minutes later. That's why. It's the hormones that aren't being balanced. Eat smart carbohydrates. Think vegetables. And vegetables. And more vegetables. Green is good. So my favorite example of a smart carbohydrate is a smoothie. And I've got at least 15 recipes in my cookbooks for smoothies. We have these every morning for breakfast in our house, and I can hide the most amazing things in them, and I can't tell you what they are right now because my husband and daughter are right there. But no, I put kale and spinach and avocado, and my rule is about 4 parts vegetables to 1 part fruit. I don't use a lot of fruit, and they taste great. So about a half cup of berries to about 2 cups of greens. But then I balance it with protein and flax and healthy fat because you want to balance your glycemic load. And if there's anything I can tell you today, it's use shirataki noodles. Does anybody here know what shirataki noodles are? Oh, there's a few of you. Okay, so shirataki noodles are amazing. They are a pure fiber noodle. You use them in place of pasta or rice. And they are, now there are brands that are soy-based. I would recommend that you avoid those completely. My favorite brand is Miracle Noodle because it does not have soy. It's pure fiber, balances blood sugar, great for diabetics. You can eat as many of them as you want, and they go right through you. So swap your bread for lettuce wraps and use veggies for dipping instead of chips. Focus your diet on healthy fats. So avoid fried fats, trans fats, and most animal fats. But the fats from avocados, nuts, and seeds are essential for great health. The worst thing that ever happened to our society was the low-fat diet. People got sick. We need healthy fats in our diet, and you need fat to burn fat. So always carry healthy food and snacks with you, like nuts, or if you're going to carry protein bars, I would make them soy-free and sugar-free. But keep stuff with you everywhere you go so you're not caught off guard. And swap your condiments. So get rid of the lousy condiments. Start using things like hummus and guacamole and salsa instead of ketchup and mayonnaise and things that are not healthy for you. Eat from the rainbow. So this means that I want you to eat food with as many different colors as possible. But, like my husband always says, Skittles do not count. And one of my tricks is to use leftovers the next day, so I always take food with me everywhere I go. So how do I do that as busy as I am? It's when I'm cooking at night, I just automatically put it in small containers, put it in my lunch bag, put it in the refrigerator, ready to go. And I use 1 day a week to prepare. So I cut things up, I cut up a massive tray of vegetables, I boil a dozen eggs, I restock my snack shelves, I spend 1 day, maybe 3 hours that day, getting everything ready for the entire week. Because with a week as crazy as ours, it doesn't happen otherwise. And you have to plan. And don't allow the waiter to leave bread on the table. Make one decision, not 30. So make one decision to say no, instead of 30 decisions to sit there and flirt with it, and then you're taking it home, and then you're slathering butter on your body, and pretty soon you're just, stay away from it. So cook with brain-healthy herbs and spices. Many of these treasures should be kept in the medicine chest instead of the kitchen. They're so powerful. Garlic and oregano boost blood flow to the brain. Saffron has been shown to be as effective as many antidepressant medications. Curcumin decreases plaques in the brain that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. And cinnamon boosts attention and is an aphrodisiac for men, as though men need much attention or much help. And then give it away. So we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And I really like this because it's the cornerstone of what worked with the Daniel plan that my husband told you about. And it really is the secret sauce of what works in my groups. The group that I teach, I just get stunning results with these women in a very short time because they bond and they help each other and it's really what works in life. So we want you to mentor someone. So who do you want to be at 100? So a recent census showed that the number of centenarians doubled since the 1990s. And at that rate, it's estimated that we could have 4.5 million people over the age of 100 by the middle of the century. So what does longevity mean to you? According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it is a long duration of individual life. So how many of you have children? Okay, and how many of you have grandchildren? So I assume that most of you want to see your grandchildren grow up and see a show of hands. How many of you want to live to be 85 or beyond? Okay. So this idea of longevity becomes very important, right? But I'm an ICU nurse. I'm a critical care nurse. And I know all of the ways that we can keep people alive for a very long time in a vegetative state. I want no part of this. And according to Leon Eldred, if I'd have known I was going to live so long, I would have taken better care of myself. I saw this every day. I want nothing to do with this. So I've adopted this phrase for my life instead. Health span is how long you live in a healthy state and are able to enjoy looking your best, feeling your best, and living with passion and having the greatest resistance to disease. Does that sound a little better? So that's Chloe. She's 8 now. She was 7 here. And Daniel and I took her for a hike, and you have to know Chloe. She's a very strong-willed child. Great brain, very smart, very strong-willed, very intense. And no idea where she gets it from, but we were walking and we were hiking, and it was a tough hike, and as we finished, she was huffing and puffing, and she was sweating. And I turned around and I looked at her and I said, Chloe, I said, you're a tough cookie. She put her hands on her hips, and she goes, I don't want to be a tough cookie. I want to be a tough red bell pepper. This is not hard. A 7-year-old gets it. It's a paradigm shift. And that is my wish for you, that you would go out and be tough red bell peppers. Thank you.